In this video, I want to explain page layout and design for the instructional manual. Now, as described in the textbook, you can make an online HTML manual, or it can be a page or hard copy manual. It doesn't matter. When you turn it in to me, though, you need to turn it in as a PDF, unless you can figure out how to give me upload it into a HTML, which is a little bit risky, but that's up to your discretion. Alright, this is a cracks in concrete sidewalks. I'm going to just explain the issues of design here, and I'm going to take you through a number of manuals. Now, the first thing you need to decide on your layout is the page size. Page size is determined by context of use and also by the amount of pictures and the level of detail needed in the pictures. Now, this context of use, this one-page set of instructions was part of a large book of instructions, and the whole book was 8.5 by 11. So that basically told you that page size. It might have, perhaps it could have been a landscape orientation instead of portrait, but since all of the other instructions were portrait, this needed to be portrait as well. So page size is the first thing you need to decide. Now, if you look at this, also if you look at these pictures don't need to be that large and detailed. So if you need a very large picture, and perhaps you were looking at it from far away, and we're going to look at the fundamentals of goalkeeping, for example, you might need a larger page size. But this page size fits the context of use. Okay, after page size then is basic orientation. Is it landscape or portrait? And this needs to be portrait. Landscape might have been a little bit better. For example, here's a landscape orientation. I take that back. This is actually another portrait orientation, but it's running a different way. This is how to rotate the wheels on your rollerblades. And here's two portrait 8.5 by 11 pages joined together, divided into half, but it runs this way from top to bottom on the instructions. Here is an actual landscape orientation, tripartite. In other words, it's landscape, but it's broken up into 3 columns, and it becomes a pamphlet. And here's the first 3 columns here, and then the back side was here. But this is a landscape orientation. You also see a landscape orientation on personalizing your new hat. Now you'll also see the different page sizes here. Personalizing your new hat was a small page size, so it could fit in a baseball, so it could be attached to a baseball cap. If you look at operating manual for Rainbow Sweeper, this is half of an 8.5 by 11 with a landscape orientation, and you'll see that, and that's an appropriate size given that, first of all, that you don't need pictures that are that large. You'll look at these instructions. They can get all the components or all of the pictures on one side of the page and the text on the other. Now, and you don't need to have it all on one page for people to see. This style is using 1/2 of an 8.5 by 11 with a landscape orientation is a great size for manual because you can handle it easy, you can flip the pages easy, but that's also part of page size. Now, as I mentioned, the rollerblade is 2 pages, and you'll see that it actually, I cut off, there was a second page that filled out most of it, but this is also a very good a size. As you see, the pictures are big enough to actually see. That one might be, you could have zoomed in on some of them, but most of the pictures I think the readers will be able to understand how to find. The screws are right here in the center, so you can probably do that. Some people might argue that this would have been could have been designed a little bit better, or you could have had a few more pictures that were larger to see what was going on. But given that the reader probably understands where the screw is in the middle of the wheel, that's probably okay. Now, once you have page size, page orientation, the next thing you need to look at is the actual flow of the manual, and this is in relation to the graphic text interaction. As you'll see, this manual has divided the page up into, I guess if you want to call it fours or halves. Each one of these is 8.5 by 11. And the flow is from top to bottom. Now let's look at the flow of this. And this last part was cut off. It should have been extended over here a little bit more, but that's as big as the copying machine could stand. This is two 8.5 by 11s joined together. And here it's broken up. Here it's the top with the introductions. And then it's broken up into 3 parts with a picture, with a text, picture and text, picture and text. Now this assumes, this design assumes that you only need one picture for a variety of instructions. Many of you will need one picture for each set of instructions. For example, if you look at the design of the woodblock print, here the first page was a full column layout, and that's fine for an introduction. But the rest of the pages have one step, and these steps can be complicated, and corresponding directly to the step is the picture, step, picture. And here we have this, and they should have organized this text better. The steps should have been numbered and sub-steps listed under there in using the resume logic of subordination and indentation. And then here's the notes. But this cuts the 8.5 by 11 in half, and on the left is the verbal step, and on the right is the picture. Some of you will need to have various sizes of graphics and various numbers of text per graphic, and the simple electric motor shows you how to do that. It's not perfect, but it has some good things. Here you'll see that it has 2 steps and then a graphic, 1 step and then a more complicated graphic, and this is the flow from top to bottom. He could have put this, the authors, they could have put this in the page layout much like the woodblock design. We could have had multiple steps here and graphic here. Either way would have worked, but this way is a little bit better if you're going to have, if the amount of steps is going to vary a lot, and you can see you want to use the same graphic or photo for a bunch of steps. If you divided it into 2 columns, you would probably have to repeat a bunch of the graphics to make it flow well. So when you're deciding on the graphic text interaction and the layout in terms of columns, you need to decide first, does there need to be a picture or graphic for each step? If so, then the woodblock print is pretty good. If in fact you probably have a variety of steps, and some of them are long or some of them are short, and maybe you'll have 1 step for a graphic, and then the next step you'll have 4 steps for a graphic, then this electric motor might work. But you can also put that in, instead of a 1 column, you could put that in a 2 column like the roller blade or like the hockey stick. Now this is a little jammed, but actually, and these graphics were done by hand, but that's fine. This is not a graphic design class. But this was done, and he wanted to put this on 1 page to make it easier to work with instead of having to print 2 pages. So this is 1 page double-sided, kind of hard card stock, and it had a bunch of steps, graphic, a bunch of steps, and graphic this way. Once you figure out the basic layout, and that means are you going to use columns, and how are you going to use columns, and how the graphics and text interact, you need to design the actual information. And that means, as I mentioned in a previous video, that each type of information, the different parts of the manual, need to have their own typographical design. This one is actually pretty good. As you see, here is a major heading, it's underlined, and then the sub-steps, and this should be underlined because here you see these are underlined, so this number 1 should have had it underlined right there, and then it has sub-steps under it, And then here is it has a bullet to remind you of when you know that what you've done is right. Now here, check the stick for any defects. These defects include rough edges, wrinkle or peeling fiberglass. These are not steps. That's why they're bulleted like information here. And then the sub-steps are A and B, and we hear A here. And then the major steps are a number with an underlined subtitle. So that's one way of doing it. It looks a little bit scattered and chaotic, but it does actually has the design that's needed. Now, as I just mentioned, make sure that each part of the manual has its own different typographical designs. I want to look specifically now at how you design the directions or instructions or steps. And I'm going to just go through this chapter. Write each direction for rapid comprehension and immediate use. And it gives you points on how to do that. Help readers locate the next step quickly. The readers need to be able to flow to the next step quickly. And that was one of the problems of cracks in concrete sidewalks. Within the steps, distinguish actions from supporting information. And I just explained how that hockey stick manual did a really good job of doing that. And this chapter shows, or this part of this chapter shows how to do that. And this is designing the actual steps. Use many graphics to show where things are, how to perform, what should result. Present branching steps clearly, and this is one of the problems of the cracks in concrete sidewalks had, is you actually had, for large steps, had it at the bottom. It should have been a branching step. So make sure that the branching steps are connected clearly or shown very clearly. Tell what to do in a case of a mistake or an unexpected result, and then make sure that you tell the reader when he or she has accomplished what she's needed to accomplish. So the steps need to be numbered, because that implies a step, and put them in a list of numbers. Follow the instructions here. Make sure that you use the command form, which means chisel out, cut, hammer, check, and then distinguish the supporting information from other kinds of information. So those are the steps. That's a very important component of instructional design, the actual step. Finally, the last part is once you have everything designed, is you need to figure out where to put all the different types of information. And this is one of my favorite one-page manuals. It was written about 15 years ago, actually, by a student, a guitar student. And you see this is an 8.5 by 11 doubled. And here it has the introduction with nice photographs. The first part flows into a verbal introduction. Then it has a large graphic of the actual guitar, and it has steps here on the right. So organizing, outlining the whole manual is the next step in terms of your layout and design. Finally, you'll need to think about the tone and the style. And I guess this is following Prios. You need to make sure that your graphics and your text fit the style that you want, and the style is based on the other 4 components of the Prios. So this is page design and layout. Let me restate it again. Start with page size. Page size is based on context of use. Is it going to be attached to a baseball cap? Is it going to be a very large wall poster? Is it going to be part of a one-page 8.5 by 11 in another book? Page size is also determined by the size of graphics and how many graphics you need and how they're going to interact with the text. Once you have page size, you do page orientation. Once you have those two, you actually look into gridding or designing the page. This is how you're going to break up the page and how the information is going to flow, and a lot of that is based on the graphic text interaction. Finally, you need to figure out what all the parts are going to fit together, and then the final version is the style. These are the basics of manual layout and design. Thank you.